Ever since we got this tractor, so today, my brother and I are going, we jack this thing up, and then we'll jack it up and right now, one thing at a time. So let's work on. The brakes, we got the ever since we got this tractor, the left brake did not work for whatever reason. We're not real sure why. So today, my brother and I are going to try and fix the brake on this tractor. This is a 48, 49, 4-8N Freeman loader and a 5-foot box plate on the back, and it's this left wheel here. But you push down on the brake, on the left brake, the right one works pretty good. So you push down on that, and it seems to work fine, but you push down on this one. There's some movement, but I can feel there's a really tough spot. Like this one, it gets hard, and then you can still keep clamping. And this one, it doesn't work. And we've stood on these pedals. We've hit it with a hammer, hit the drum with the hammer, and everything. So first things first, we're going to loosen up the lug nuts before we jack this thing up. And then we'll jack it up, and then we'll take the lug nuts the rest of the way off. And I know from doing this job, something like this to the Alice, you know, pulling off the tires and whatnot on it. This tractor sat out for 15 years outside, and I know this center, this whole thing in here is going to be all rusty, and it's going to be a bear to get off. So we've got a big pry bar, and we also have a big, like a spud bar. It's like 1 inch by 1 inch thick steel. And we'll shove that in between the brake drum, in between right in here. And then hopefully that'll get this tire off. Now there is calcium in this. I'm not entirely sure how much. I think it's less than half full of calcium. That tire over there, I don't think it leaked. And it does have calcium in it, but we're not going to mess with that right now. One thing at a time. So let's work on this brake, and hopefully we can get it freed up. We're not planning on putting any new pads or anything in it. We might put a new spring or two in it, but we'll see. We'll go from there.
Here we are just getting the tools ready to do this job. I've never done brakes on anything before, other than maybe like a garden tractor or something. So we're just getting the socket. Let's see, we needed a socket, a bunch of adapters, a breaker bar, an extra pipe, and also a, you see behind me there, a real big piece of pipe. Some of these lug nuts were on there pretty tight, and surprise, surprise, after we got this tractor, or this side of the tractor jacked up, we actually got, and we got the lug nuts loose. This tire actually came right off. I was really, really surprised. I was expecting, you know, this tractor had sat out for the past 15 years of its life, and I had expected this tire to be, you know, it's basically welded itself to the tractor itself, and it didn't do it. I'm really, even now as I'm editing this video, I'm shocked at how easily that tire came off. I was expecting to have to use a sledge and possibly a breaker bar, or, you know, just any number of things, because getting the tires off the Alice, boy, that was a nightmare trying to do that. But the lug nuts really weren't too rusty, And also there's this brake drum. I wish I would have moved the camera in closer. There's these 4 flathead screws that you had to take out to remove the drum, and you also had to release the pressure of the shoes off the drum. So after we removed the pressure from the shoes, we were able to get out 3 of the 4 screws on this brake drum. So what we did on the 4th one, I sprayed some penetrating oil on there, and we couldn't get it by hand off, so my brother got his impact driver and he filed down a spade bit on it, because those are 1/4-inch drive also, and we were able to, he went forward and reverse a couple times, second speed on his impact, and he was able to finally get that last screw out. The brake shoes looked pretty good in this, much to our surprise. And it's really, everything looked quite well. Now, it did look oily. So I will say we're probably into, if we were going to do this again, we're probably into replacing a wheel seal in this tractor. I've never done that before either, so this will be a learning process. But apparently the center nut on this, my brother was looking up the torque specs of it, and apparently how tight you tighten the center, the main nut for the wheel or the hub assembly, that thing is supposed to be torqued down to like 400 foot-pounds, and I don't have anything that'll go nearly that high, so we'll probably have to use a breaker bar slid over a pipe and figure out the calculations for how much we need to tighten it. Here we were, let's see, what were we doing here? We were checking, another thing that was messed up on this was someone had put the spring in the wrong place, and it made the pedal really, somewhat difficult to push down. I mean, you could still push it down, but it was more difficult to push down than the right pedal, so we put the spring in a different position. Actually, we put in a new spring in a different hole, and that seems to have made the pedal easier to push down. Now we did not get, once we got everything back together, the brakes sort of worked, but not really. I don't know if there's supposed to be grooves or something cut into the drum or the brake shoes itself, but I mean, the brake pads were smooth. They were a little rough, not as rough as I would like them to be. Part of me wishes we would have taken some, 80 grit sandpaper and roughed up the pads a little bit to try to get them to work as they should. But I mean, everything looked quite well, pretty good in this thing. All the springs looked good. There were no rusted through springs, etc., etc. I mean, nothing was broken, nothing was cracked. We just had some oil in the drum, and I think that's what was stopping this thing from working. Now, also, there was about a 1/16 of an inch, as wide as the pads were. The pads had worn away about a 1/16 of an inch of steel on the inside of the drum. So if you ran your finger across it, and then where this pad ended, there was about a 1/16 of an inch lip there. So at some point we may replace the pads and replace the drum, as well as the wheel seal, or the hub seal, I guess that's what they call it. And then hopefully we would have a working left brake. But we're just putting everything back together here, and since that one screw was really, really difficult to get out, we decided to coat everything in there in grease, and then the next time, this should be pretty easily taken apart if need be. So the next time we won't have a real hard problem, or a real hard time trying to, take this stuff apart. Well, we did the inside of the rim, where it contacts the brake drum. We did all the threads on all 4 screws, and then all the lug nuts. And there's even a lip. There's a lip inside of the hub, right next to where the big main nut is for the wheel. We put a bunch of grease on there too, because that's where, on the Alice, that's where it was rusted together, and we couldn't get the wheel off of the tractor. So, well, we're just keeping everything greased up, and I think we're tightening everything. Oh, Christian is adjusting the brake shoes so they'll contact the right, at the right time and even on both sides. What we did, there's like an adjustment. You use a flathead screwdriver, and you use that to adjust the brake shoes. And, I've got to say, this old tractor, it's really easy to work on. Parts are readily available, and they're pretty cheap. I've got to say, I'm pretty glad we have a Ford tractor, especially an 8N one. They made 524,000 of these tractors, and the average person can work on it, and it's a pretty good tractor. It was cheap to start with, and everything seems to be pretty well made, so we're pretty happy there. The motor needs rebuilt, though.
So we adjusted the brakes. We got the... I think there was oil on the shoes, and what do you think?
There was that spring that was
Oh,
in the
yeah.
wrong spot.
Yeah, that spring was in the wrong spot, which made the pedal harder to push down on, so hopefully that'll work. That this fixed it. We cleaned the brake pads and the brake drum. The brake drum had some groove, well, not grooves in it, it had wear in it.
Yeah, it was probably about a 1/16 of an inch of steel that's been worn away.
Yeah. So I guess we're gonna fire it up and see how this thing, see how it stops now. Yep, good. So we didn't have any brakes before, and I don't know that this has fixed it. But I told my brother to drive around on, just stand on the pedal and just mash on it. I want to see that tire lock up, and hopefully we can get this thing to work. I'm not entirely sure. The brake pads look fine, so I mean, the only thing that I could think of was maybe the drum or something. I don't really know, so we'll see, I guess.
It seems the more we use this, the left brake on this tractor, it seems like it's sort of working more and more, so I don't know if stuff just needs to get used to being used again. I don't really know, but I think it did. My brother mentioned that it sort of locked up that tire, the left tire, the last time he used it, so I guess this brake is sort of coming back to life. I don't really know, so hope everyone enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. And hopefully we will see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching.